June 1930. The stock market had crashed 8 months earlier. Banks were wobbling. People were scared. And Congress, in its infinite wisdom, decided the best way to fix a fragile economy was to start a fight with the entire world. Enter the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act. A bill so catastrophically stupid that over 1,000 economists begged the president not to sign it. A bill that economists today still reference when they want to say, please, don't be an idiot. A bill that was supposed to protect American jobs, and instead torched American farms, crushed manufacturing, collapsed global trade, and deepened the Great Depression. Because here's the thing no one in Congress wanted to admit. When you raise tariffs on the world raises tariffs on you. And in 1930, every major trading partner did exactly that. American farmers suddenly couldn't sell their crops abroad. Factories sat idle, exports fell off a cliff, and unemployment exploded. This wasn't just bad policy. It was cause and effect in real time. And today, some people want to do it again. So in this episode, we're breaking down how Smoot-Hawley happened, why it blew up in America's face, how it wrecked farmers and manufacturers, and why repeating it now is the economic equivalent of sticking a fork in a power outlet and saying, this time will be different. Welcome to bear markets and bad decisions. Before Smoot-Hawley became the dumbest economic decision of the 20th century, there was something real behind it. Fear. After the stock market crashed in October of 1929, America wasn't in full-blown depression yet, but the cracks were showing. Factories were slowing, prices were slipping, farmers were already hurting from years of overproduction, and across the country, people were terrified the roaring 20s were about to slam into a brick wall. So what did Congress do? They reached for the easiest, laziest political move on the menu. If Americans are struggling, let's block foreign competition. Even though foreign competition wasn't the real problem, tariffs wouldn't fix falling demand, and U.S. farmers desperately relied on exports. But fear makes people stupid, and fear makes politicians promise easy solutions. So Senator Reed Smoot of Utah and Representative Willis Hawley from Oregon stepped up with a plan. Raise tariffs on over 20,000 imported goods. They told voters it would protect American jobs. They told farmers it would protect American crops. They told manufacturers it would revive American industry. But there was a massive problem, one that nearly everyone who understood international trade recognized immediately. The global economy in 1930 was not the same world America had in 1890. By 1930, supply chains were international, Europe bought huge amounts of U.S. farm goods, American factories depended on imported components, and the world economy was tightly interconnected. Raising tariffs wasn't going to protect America, it was going to isolate America. And isolation in a globalized economy is like turning off the oxygen in your own room while you're yelling at your neighbor for breathing too loudly. Even President Herbert Hoover didn't really want to sign it, but Smoot and Hawley kept pushing. Fear made it popular, lobbyists made it messy, and economics didn't seem to matter. Congress was building a bomb that would go off in America's hands long before it hurt anyone else. And once they lit the fuse, it didn't take long for the explosion to begin. Once Smoot-Hawley reached Congress, every lobbyist in Washington smelled opportunity, and they swarmed. This thing didn't start out as the monster it became. It began as a small farm tariff bill, but lobbyists looked at it like a Costco sample tray. Oh, you're giving out tariffs today? Let me get one. So Congress opened the hearings, and the parade began, and it was absurd. The pencil lobby wanted protection against unfair pencil infiltration. The glove lobby insisted the future of American democracy depended on imported gloves costing more. The egg lobby wanted tariffs because apparently foreign eggs were a national security threat. The asparagus industry demanded special protection because, well, asparagus. There was even a push to raise tariffs on dog food. Take that, pet lovers. Every special interest in the country had a handout. Protect American sauerkraut. Raise tariffs on buttons. Tax foreign nails. What about artificial silk? We need a tariff for that. It became an economic fever dream. Smoot and Hawley weren't crafting a policy. They were running a clearance sale on influence. Congress literally turned the bill into a tariff Christmas tree. Every lobbyist got to hang their own ornament. And the result? The bill ballooned into the most protectionist tariff package in modern American history, covering over 20,000 goods. Not because it made sense, but because everyone wanted their cut. Economists were horrified. The famous letter signed by 1,028 economists wasn't polite. It basically said, "Dear Congress, you're building a giant economic death trap. Please stop being stupid." But Congress didn't stop. They just kept shoveling in more tariff requests like children piling toys into a cart while the parents look away for 5 seconds. Even President Hoover didn't want this thing, but his own party boxed him in. Farm states demanded action. Manufacturers loved the short-term sugar high, and lobbyists spun it as good for America. So on June 17, 1930, with the economy already wobbling, Hoover caved. He signed Smoot-Hawley into law. And the rest of the world responded in about 5 minutes. Tariffs on American wheat, tariffs on American pork, tariffs on American machinery, tariffs on American textile, tariffs on American cars. Canada, our biggest trading partner, retaliated immediately. Europe followed. Dozens of countries raised barriers. The global economy turned into a minefield. And the people Smoot-Hawley was supposed to protect, they got hit first. When the world slammed its doors on American goods, the damage didn't trickle in. It hit like a freight train. When the world slammed its doors on American goods, the damage didn't spread slowly. It detonated. And it hit first where the U.S. was the most exposed. America's farms. Farmers had already spent the 1920s drowning in overproduction and debt. They needed foreign buyers to survive. So when other countries retaliated, those markets vanished overnight. Canada, our biggest trading partner, targeted U.S. farm goods immediately. Wheat, pork, dairy, lumber, not subtly, aggressively. And the numbers tell the story. Wheat prices fell over 30%. Cotton collapsed 60%. Corn dropped over 30%. Farm incomes evaporated. Farm bankruptcy surged. Rural banks failed right alongside them. And this was before the Dust Bowl. Smoot-Hawley didn't protect farmers. It softened them up for disaster. Then manufacturing went down. Foreign buyers stopped buying. U.S. automobile exports fell over 50%. Machinery exports collapsed over 75%. Steel, metals, tools, orders evaporated. Industrial production fell 46% between 1929 and 1933. Congress thought tariffs would boost U.S. manufacturing. Instead, manufacturers lost customers. Because when you wall yourself off from the world, you wall off demand right along with it. Exports collapsed. This is the statistic that historians still pull out when they want to show just how bad things got. U.S. exports fell nearly 40% in 4 years. Not a soft landing, a cliff dive. Foreign retaliation wasn't symbolic. It decimated America's abilities to sell abroad. And then the global economy tanks. Smoot-Hawley triggered a wave of copycat tariffs worldwide. Nations raised barriers. Trade routes froze. Nobody trusted anybody. World trade didn't shrink. It imploded. Global trade volumes fell by about 2/3 between 1929 and 1934. That's not a slowdown. That's an economic suffocation. Unemployment explodes. Before all this, unemployment was around 3%. After the dominoes fell, 25%. 1 in 4 Americans out of work. Factories silent. Farms repossessed. millions of families gutted. And Congress, the same Congress that engineered the disaster, acted shocked, as if their actions didn't set the whole chain reaction in motion. And here's the part that should worry you. The lesson economists learned from Smoot-Hawley, Washington is flirting with ignoring it all over again. When Smoot-Hawley helped shut down global trade, the pain didn't stay on the farms and the factory lines. It radiated outward into every corner of American life. Because once enough workers lose jobs, their entire communities start to collapse. The small businesses start to die. When farmers stop earning and factory workers stop earning, every business that depends on them collapses next. Barbershops, bakeries, hardware stores, corner groceries, dress shops, restaurants, repair shops. The people who didn't export anything still felt the shockwave because their customers disappeared. A barber can't survive when half the town is unemployed. A bakery can't keep the doors open when families can't afford bread. A diner can't run when the morning crowd has vanished. This is the part of the Depression that history books skip, the collapse of community life, and children pay the worst price. For kids, the tariffs didn't look like an economic policy. They looked like shoes that didn't fit, dinners that were smaller, fathers gone all day looking for work, mothers selling jewelry or heirlooms, siblings dropping out of school to help. In some towns, teachers went months without pay. Schools shut down, libraries cut hours. Cold classrooms were heated with coal bought by parents who had none. Kids learned early what fear looks like. The elderly loses their safety nets. There was no social security yet. So when adult children lost their income, grandparents suddenly became financial burdens they couldn't afford, and many ended up homeless or dependent on charity. Retirement, that concept disappeared. Everyone worked until they physically couldn't, because there was no other option. Immigrants and the poor get targeted. Economic hardship always brings scapegoating. Communities blamed immigrants for taking jobs, even though the jobs had vanished because of collapsing trade. Some immigrants were deported, some left voluntarily, some simply disappeared into work camps. Meanwhile, poor Americans were turned away from scarce relief programs. Racial discrimination skyrocketed. The tariffs didn't cause prejudice, but they created the condition where it could thrive. Cities start to break. When businesses closed and tax revenue evaporated, local governments ran out of money. City services collapsed. Garbage pickup stopped, streetlights went dark, public works froze, policing was reduced, hospitals turned people away, relief centers were overwhelmed. City budgets became survival puzzles. What can we shut down without shutting everything down? Spoiler, there was no good answer. The middle class ceases to exist. In the 1920s, a growing middle class invested in stocks, cars, radios, refrigerators. In the 1930s, that vanished. People who once had savings now had nothing. People who once budgeted for vacations now budgeted for food. People who once had pride in stability now stood in bread lines, wearing old hats and newer shame. The middle class collapsed downward, fast and brutally. The country goes mobile in the worst way. With jobs scarce, millions took to the road, some on foot, some hitching rides, some riding freight trains, moving from town to town, hoping for seasonal work. Entire communities wandered, not for adventure, for survival. This was America losing its sense of place. The U.S. eventually backed away from Smoot-Hawley with the Reciprocal Trade Agreement Act of 1934, which reopened trade and acknowledged, quietly, that the tariff experiment had been catastrophic. The recovery wasn't instant, but reconnecting with the world was the first step out of the darkness. Because the truth is still the same. Economic isolation doesn't protect people, it abandons them. And today, while modern tariff debates shift around, in courts, in Congress, in policy swings, the human mechanics haven't changed. If prod tariffs returned today, the pain wouldn't start on Wall Street. It would start in grocery stores, in small towns, in apartment kitchens, on farms and in fields, in low-income neighborhoods, in factories, in service jobs, among people already stretched thin. Trade wars don't happen on spreadsheets. They happen in real lives. Lives that don't get mentioned in speeches. Lives that never cause the problem. Lives that always pay the price. And that's why Smoot Hawley isn't just a story about bad economics. It's a story about what happens when leaders make decisions and everyday people carry the consequences. So what's the lesson here? When a country walls itself off from the world, it doesn't become stronger. It just becomes lonely and broke. Smoot Hawley didn't save America, it kneecapped it. And the people who suffered weren't the ones who wrote the bill. They were the ones who trusted those leaders to know better. Which brings us to today. Anytime you hear someone say, "Let's fix the economy with massive tariffs," just remember, we tried that. It did not go well, and history is not subtle at reminding us. If you enjoyed this journey through one of the most spectacularly bad policy decisions in American history, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and tell your algorithm you want more stories about how humans keep repeating the same terrible ideas. And I want to hear from you. Do you think politicians actually believe tariffs work? Or do they just think we won't notice the fallout? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This has been Bear Markets and Bad Decisions. I'm Heather Shell, and remember, in a trade war, nobody wins. Except maybe the auction houses selling off bankrupt inventory.